maize production, we make that bold policy and practice decision to say, for this area, let the focus be something else. That's why I brought in issues of mining. And it's an issue which we need to look into. Then we work on logistics, on growing maize where it is viable, and looking at the logistics of moving it to the places where it is needed. I think the issue of infrastructure, irrigation schemes, yes, the dams are there. But the issues of leakages, much of our irrigation schemes, they are flood. And much of the water is lost before it gets to the crops. And these issues need to be looked into. There are also issues of management or governance of irrigation schemes, which are very huge and major. And if we invest as much as we're investing in the constructing new schemes or new dams, that could change the course of life. As a country, we may not necessarily need to be fluctuating from high yields and very low yields. We have to be smooth. I think that's what I can mention. On the models as the last, the models, I've mentioned the issue of selection of different models. What is important is to highlight those which represent a group of models and to analyze what determines the future. Because if you don't choose your models very well, you can base your practice and your policy on wrong footing. And we have scenarios. I think I've shared some of the methodologies. Thank you so much.
Maybe through you, Chair, there was a question that was directed to Moven, I believe, from Doreen. And as we even have this discussion, I think it's also key to talk about the strides that Zimbabwe has made through statutory instrument 150 of 2023, which regulates the thriving carbon credits industry. To what extent has that legislation helped where countries and organizations can offset their carbon emissions by investing in renewable energy? We cannot close on this discussion without talking about that legislation and the impact it has had.
Okay, thank you. On that one, I would put that it's done from a different department, from the Meteorological Services Department. They are the ones who are best at dealing with issues to do with carbon credits, the Department of Climate Change Management Department. But what I know is there was a climate bill, consultations which are currently taking place. I attended one or two. Up to now, I don't know at which level it is at.
We'll get there enough
Okay.
Let's focus on the question we had at the back concerning using school kids or using schools instead of for volunteers.
Yes. That's a suggestion that has been put on board. So one critical aspect which we have to deal with is the issue of using World Meteorological Organization certified equipment. If we are to include that data in our data set as MSD, or the other option is to build a separate data set, whereby we say as a nation, we can have another data set where we just collect all our data from the various instruments, but then the certified stations will then feed into the World Meteorological Organization data set. So these are some of the issues which are under consideration, and the department is still seized with that. Then on the last one, where there is a little bit of maybe confusion on whether rainfall is increasing or decreasing. I think we had some discussions with some delegates during tea break. You need to check that map in terms of area. Like what Dr. Moyo said, climate and weather is area specific. So in my presentation, there are areas which, especially the central parts, if you check, it's pointing towards decreasing what? Precipitation. But the areas to the extreme southeast and the northwest, that's where you see that they will be increasing what? But then in terms of a magnitude or in terms of total or figures, you realize that the central parts has always received a lot of rainfall. Therefore, if we say there's a decrease, the decrease might be much, much significant than those other areas which have traditionally received less. So the increase might be small in those areas, but it's an increase because what we are saying is we are looking at the occurrence of hydromet hazards. If they are flooding events induced by cyclones, and we are saying we expect tropical cyclone activity to increase, and when it does, it usually affects those two areas. It's either they are pushing through the Zambezi Basin or they are pushing through the Limpopo, and they usually affect those other areas. So that's the information that we are giving is when it comes to policy making, you need to look at those maps and then see which areas are going to experience increasing precipitation and which are going to. So every information is there on that map, but you need to check in terms of area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Morven, for that. And thank you very much. I think it's now time that we give a round of applause for our panel, which was ably led by the chair, Dr. Chigumira. And we can continue appreciating them as they take their seats. Dr. Chigumira, Madame Juliet, and Madame Mutambara, who were here with Mr. Mzite for that panel discussion that we've just had. My name is Linda Muriro, and I am with Andy Hodges, my co-host. And allow me also to recognize our Deputy Minister and our Permanent Secretary is here present. Andy.
Right, so I'm not, my wife appreciate that, but that was an incredible session. And I think what it did for us this morning as the opening session, and I think this is why it's difficult to understand why, it's shown us the baseline. It's shown us why we're here in Victoria Falls in Zedcon 2024 discussing building resilience and driving economic transformation under climate change. I think now in our minds, we can see the rainfall patterns. We can see what the increased temperature is going to do for our country, for our crops. I am starting to understand, I'm sure most of you in the room are, some of the interventions and policies that need to be put in place to try and mitigate some of these issues that are happening around us. And these are real. And as one of the speakers said, we cannot bury our heads in the sand because the people who are going to be hurt the most are the ones when you go home and look at, and they're going to school, the children of the future, our children, and their children are the ones who will suffer. Now is the time to act. So that was a very good platform for us to continue going on into the various other aspects of our conference. So I'd like you to please give the panel and all the speakers a very, very big round of applause. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we close up for lunch, we just have two very, very short presentations that I think are important for us to listen to because, of course, one will be coming from the World Bank and the other one will be coming from the United Nations, who, of course, are at the forefront with all the countries in the world helping to drive the SDGs, helping to fight against climate change. So, without further ado, I'd like to please call upon Enaida Fernandez, Country Manager, Zimbabwe for the World Bank, just to come and give us a few words. Thank you. Please, as I said, keep clapping until she gets here. Yeah. Yeah, keep clapping, keep clapping. Are you okay? There we go.
Thank you so much. I was put on the spot. I wasn't supposed to speak this morning. But just to say that we're very, very happy to be here as the World Bank and to see all of you that are here, not only our partners that we work very closely with in the Ministry of Finance, but also Ministry of Energy, ZIMRA, and all of the other partners of the World Bank and country. And I think this is really, for us, an opportunity to be with all of you here today, because all of the work of the World Bank in Zimbabwe has to be done with the public sector, but also the private sector. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you to discuss some of these very important topics. I think that the theme of this year is absolutely pertinent in the space that we're in right now with the drought, but also in terms of planning and the new mission of the World Bank that, in addition to having the focus of eliminating extreme poverty and shared prosperity, we have a big focus on a livable planet. And a livable planet will depend on how we do agriculture, how we harvest water, how we do energy in a different way. And I think Zimbabwe has all it takes to do it and to do it well and to show the world and the region how it can be done. I think that in the case of Zimbabwe, the World Bank has a different role than in a lot of countries. We hope that soon we will also be able to bring some investment, but I just wanted to commit our role as a knowledge bank and to be able to work with all of you in these important areas of interventions. And with our new strategy with the government, we really are focusing on two main points: on growth, which will have to do with the macro environment, but also the private sector, working on some of the key sectors, being here in Victoria Falls, the importance of climate linked to the tourism sector and environment, but also agriculture, farmer-led irrigation, and some of these other topics that we can discuss, but also on resilience and the impact of climate on the people and the importance of having a social protection system in place, a social registry in place so that we can respond quickly, so the government can respond quickly to all of the challenges that are there. And in terms of resilience and climate, big focus on energy and renewable energy and working very closely with the ministry. So we're here to learn, to listen, to work with all of you, available to discuss with all of you, myself and Victor, who's our economist, who's here today, who will be joining us this afternoon. So just a big thanks for the invite and very happy to be here.
Please, a big round of applause by country representative, Ms. Fernandez. Thank you so much for that. Now, to just do a few more remarks before we close for our lunchtime session, and then, of course, I'll give you the details after this next speaker gives his few remarks. I'd like to call upon United Nations Resident Coordinator, Ambassador Edward Callon. Please, Ambassador, please, a big round of applause. Remember the protocol. Thank you. Yeah, no problem, no problem. So he has to take it slowly, so you have to keep clapping more. Thank you. Of course, as we know, United Nations are fully involved in SDGs and SDG 13 climate action are policies to combat climate change in the environment. Ambassador, over to you, sir.
Let me start by saying, first, thank you very much for inviting us to this important gathering of brains as far as macroeconomy is concerned. And thank you to my brother, the PS of the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Guvamatanga, and then also other colleagues that we interact with always. To me, this Zedcon this year is so timely. Timely in the sense that we are not going to allow you to blow us with macroeconomic theories, but rather try to fix a situation at hand. And that is building resilience and driving economic transformation under climate change. It is so important to us because we are doing this as we, all the world, prepares to meet in New York in September to talk about what? How we can rescue multilateralism. We are living in a world today where we are all witnessing a rupture in global governance. And we are seeing a serious threat to multilateralism. So we are hoping that the compact of the future will be able to streamline some of these challenges we are facing. But just to ensure that I am not beaten by my people at the end of the day, I normally have to follow what they want me to say, but I pick the sense out of it. Yeah? So His Excellency Dr. Edie Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, who I'm sure will be addressing us tomorrow. Honorable Richard Moyo, Minister of Provincial Affairs and Devolution for Matabeleland, who I'm sure will be here tomorrow. Honorable Professor Mutuli Nkubi, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, who will definitely be here tomorrow. Honorable Dr. David Mnangagwa, Deputy Minister, who will also be here tomorrow. Dr. George Guvamatanga, Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and and Investment Promotion, who is here with us, senior government officials, captains of industries, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to join you this day. I was not going to make it, but when I got the letter from my brother George, I said, let me try. So I tried to jump on a plane. So I'm really glad to be here today at this gathering of the 2024 Zimbabwe Economic Development Conference and share with you some perspectives of the UN system in Zimbabwe on this very important topic. From the outset, allow me to extend my heartfelt gratitude again to the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, and particularly Professor Ashok Chakravarty for his unwavering commitment to facilitating policy and research as we work together towards realizing the nation's 2030 vision to become an upper middle income society. I'm so impressed with your effort running after these moderators who can make life difficult for participants at times. Yeah. The conference theme, Building Resilience and Driving Economic Transformation under Climate Change, is particularly timely as Zimbabwe, the SADC region, and the world face recurrent climate shocks these days. It is crazy that we wake up, the first thing you see on TVs for the past 1 year is either floods, drought, wildfires, you name it. That's the world we are in today. But we have been extremely critical at the time we first realized that indeed climate change is a threat. But now it is here with us, and it's here to stay if we don't take the necessary actions. The present El Nino in this drought in Zimbabwe, from all anecdotal information I've been listening to, is the most severe in 40 years, or slightly after 40 years, affecting millions that needs urgent attention. While we were discussing here, I normally do this because I used to have a good brain when I was young. So I was also looking at some articles there, a recent article that has been developed or produced by ODI on the climate-related development finance of El Nino-impacted countries in Southern Africa, of which Zimbabwe was one of the case studies. I stumbled across a summary, which I want to throw to the researchers here. And it says, and I quote, while a recent study has concluded that the drought in the region is driven by El Nino rather than climate change, and that climate adaptation investments are beneficial for addressing both impacts from natural climate variability and what they call anthropogenic climate change. But I leave this to the researchers. That was something that just came out. It's a recent study by ODI, which is quite interesting when you read it. And we can make it available to you, Prof, for those who are interested. You will stumble across crazy statistics and try to start imagining the amount of money that is going to overseas development financing when it comes to this business. Just to capture one for you, developing countries ODF is $2.3 trillion as we speak. El Nino countries export, those countries that have been affected by El Nino, is estimated around $826 billion. And the African overseas development financing is around $754 billion. South Africa, a mere $103 billion, etc. These figures will be there so that you can do some comparative analysis and get a scope or a scooping strategy as where these monies are and where they are coming to. And I'm sure Zimbabwe will be very much interested to follow the trends of those monies. Zimbabwe, like many other countries, face significant challenges due to the impact of climate change. The El Nino phenomenon has had negative implications on economic growth, agricultural yields, food security, energy, water, sanitation, hygiene, health, and education sector. That's how complex and diversified the impact is. The drought, from analysis we have, Ministry of Agriculture, please don't kill me if this is wrong, but the last figure we saw was that it's actually reduced cereal production by 77%, leaving about 60% of the country's population food insecure. And what is clear to us is that to build resilience and drive economic transformation, we must start thinking out of the box. We must start consolidating our thoughts, and we must try to be a little bit creative in the way we do things. So from our observation, we think the following are very critical as you develop this topic further. One, first is mobilizing resources for climate resilience. To fill the adaptation financing gap, which is a major problem today, Zimbabwe must strategically leverage both domestic and international resources. The national budget should prioritize climate adaptation projects, complemented by seeking support from international institutions such as the Green Climate Fund, and also improve and strengthen that partnership with the private sector through incentives and promoting public-private partnerships, which are critical. And public-private partnership has shown that they are the funding engine room for sustainable infrastructural investment in areas of renewable energy, climate-smart agriculture, and sustainable infrastructure. We are also aware that green bonds have also shown their potentials. So these are areas to follow. Second is ensuring effective and efficient resource utilization. We think it is critical to ensure that whatever resources are made available are used effectively and efficiently. This requires very simple, transparent, and accountable governance framework. Establishing clear matrices and reporting mechanisms can help monitor the progress of climate resilience programs. Additionally, investing in capacity building for local communities and government bodies can ensure that stakeholders are knowledgeable about implementing and managing adaptation strategies. At times we assume, but there is still a lot to do in that area. And today, it was said again, we cannot overemphasize the need for a whole of government and intersectoral collaboration when it comes to this subject we are here to discuss. Third is catalyzing coordination and collaboration. We think this is critical, and Zimbabwe must foster partnership between government agencies, non-governmental organizations, the private sector, and the international community. We are living in a global village, and it has reached a time that we cannot really stay out of that village. We have to be part of that, citizens of that village. And we think that establishing a robust national resilience platform led by the government with support from the UN and development partners to climate resilience can help align efforts in trying to streamline climate shocks, as we have witnessed with this recent El Nino phenomenon, which we are all dealing with, and also the past experience of Cyclone Idai. Fourth is El Nino and La Nina preparations and financial access. My colleagues, we are saying a lot here today about building resilience, but they have essentially touched on what I call the fundamental basic pieces of preparedness. This is what my climatologist or hydroset hazard analyst or expert was actually trying to tell us today here. There is need for investment. And if you are talking about budgets within this context, I think investment pathways that will ensure preparedness will be very critical. And we think that proactive preparation for El Nino and La Nina events can translate to better access to finance by showcasing Zimbabwe's commitment to mitigating climate risk. We can draw lessons on our first anticipatory action plan, which was led by the Department of Civil Protection and supported by the UN and partners, with a total budget of about $28 million, of which we were able to harness around or mobilize around $10 million. The key takeaway from the anticipatory action is that effective preparation requires the establishment of early warning systems, the maintenance of strategic food reserves, and the implementation of crop insurance programs. By showcasing robust management strategies, Zimbabwe can bolster its credibility and attract investment from international financial institutions, especially after receiving the second $31 million from the African Risk Insurance and Climate Resilience Focused donors. Our proactive approach to managing potential disaster is essential as threats approach. I would like to commend the government of Zimbabwe for its timely decision to declare a state of disaster as announced by His Excellency the President, following a comprehensive national response. It's a difficult reality, but a crucial reform of the global financial system is needed, one that ensures fair opportunities for growth and resilience. And from ongoing discussions and the UN perspective, I would just want to share a few areas that will remain very critical in these discussions. One is debt relief and restructuring of vital that are extremely critical, especially for Zimbabwe, and how Zimbabwe should continue with the area clearance and debt resolution programs. And reforms such as pause clauses for natural disasters and comprehensive debt restructuring are also essential. Climate financing, I think that's the central theme here, and it is critical for resilience building. I have told you the paper that has been written. You can have a look at this. SDG stimulus. You are all aware what the SDG, the Secretary General came with post-COVID and was requesting a stimulus of $500 billion, backed by the creation of multi-purpose trust funds aimed at mobilizing resources for this. Trade concessions and economic partnerships are also critical in this area. And let me just end here. I think there are more details there that people can share when you get a copy of these notes. But let me paraphrase one ending story. This is really timely. And let me go now to the macroeconomics and my friends in the Ministry of Finance. I think investment pathways to address climate change is indeed now a critical element of your budget planning process. But to plan is good. To have strategies is great. But if you cannot translate them and cannot implement them, they are just pieces of papers lying on a shelf. So walk the talk and be with the people. Do things to help people and not just do things to put papers on the shelf. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, a big round of applause. Ambassador E. Callon, UN Resident Coordinator for Zimbabwe. Thank you. Please, remember protocol. Go, guys. All right, you can keep clapping, keep clapping. Yeah, you can even keep clapping for me if you like. It's fine. Ambassador, thank you. Linda, where are you? Right, so we have come right on time, I must add, 12:45 or thereabouts. So congratulations. You can give yourselves a for that, so congratulations for keeping on time. Now then, we do, however, have lunch now. Lunch will be downstairs. Now, there are 3 serving points for lunch. However, the VIPs will be given to, they'll eat where the glass tables are on the right. 3 serving points. And for those of you who are vegetarian, I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up, because I think no one will put their hands up, and then some may. But there are vegetarian meals available as well. We will reconvene on the dot, please. 13:45 Central African time, as someone always says, we'll reconvene. And of course, all of you watching on ZTM Prime and possibly listening through our other channels like Star FM, please keep your questions, your comments coming through online. We will try and find time during the next 3 days to try and address some of your issues. Linda?
Thank you very much. I think you've said it all, Andy. And yeah, we will allow our VIPs to exit the room for lunch. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. So